What's going on, everyone? My name is Nicholas Merton here at DataDash, and today is March 27th of 2020. Well, folks, I hope you all are having a fantastic day wherever you are, and in today's video, I want to spend some time to not only talk about the resilience we've seen in cryptocurrency markets as Bitcoin has not only tested back to 7,000, but we've also seen altcoin dominance starting to gain over the last 48 hours. But outside of that as well, I want to talk about traditional markets and why, even though over the last 3 days we've seen relief across the board in global equities, that I think it is going to be short-lived, and that this is simply a short-term reaction due to the Fed's dramatic stimulus into equity markets, and that we're going to see, especially inflation-adjusted, a much worse set of performance in the overall economy and in global equities. So we'll talk about why that is as we go through the data, but outside of that as well, we've also got a sponsored review for Incognito, a really interesting privacy-preserving protocol project, so I recommend you guys stay tuned for that. You won't want to miss it, okay? So let's go ahead here, taking a look across the board of the market here. Vast majority of cryptocurrencies in neutral territory, with most pointing up in the green at the moment, but again, nothing too severe here in the sense of market price change. However, Bitcoin is still holding up here around the 7,000 level. What I like to see here in the sense of these kind of significant rebounds off of significant lows or pullbacks is I like to see that there are these periods of time, as we saw over here, and over here, where we hold a day or two's worth of price action where we make significant moves, where we usually move anywhere from 10 to 20%. And afterwards, we take a few days similar to what we see in a bull flag pattern, where we take that time to hold support at that range, to maybe pull back a tad bit from the absolute highs, or at least absolute relative highs, but making sure that we take time to show that buyers in this case are providing support, that the sell side is over. And you tend to see a decline in volume with it as well, which is actually quite good. Now, what we want to see here, if the bulls want to remain in a confident position, right, is similar to what we see back over here, right? You have significant buy-side volume and less significant sell-side volume as price generally holds most of the gains. And afterwards, you want to see a repeat of that. You want to see increased volume. And I'd like to see volume beyond anything we saw over the last couple of weeks, last 2 weeks really, ever since we set these lows. Now, outside that as well, we want to keep an eye on altcoin dominance. And right now, luckily, altcoin dominance is actually holding up quite nicely. Over the last 2 days, we've had a pretty nice rebound, getting a little bit more than half a percentage point, up from 32% towards 32.68%. So again, interesting significance about this is not so much the move that we saw over the last day or two. It really is just recapping back over the past 2 days beforehand. What we're really seeing here is that we had a turn in this trend here that was going on for a multitude of weeks at a significant level here, right? So this is taking a look at Bitcoin dominance, basically in a flip nature. We're taking a look at a reversal of this and seeing what altcoin dominance is at around 32.68%. If we take a look at actual Bitcoin dominance, we can see here that this is the range here where we hit resistance for a multitude of weeks before we really kicked off the downward trend. So in this case, I think we're going to start to see this turn back down. The real significance that we want to look for in price action, or thing that would make us confident that we have a trend reversal, is to see that we make lower lows and lower highs, right? Again, just like how we could get some confidence here for altcoins when we started to make higher highs and higher lows, that gave us confidence for a continuation in the trend, right? That's the same thing we used up here, right? Lower highs and lower lows. And eventually we hit that breaking point where the real sell side action came in for altcoins. So even though Bitcoin has made up a lot of that, we are still well below this level range around 73 back in August and September, when we started to make serious positions in altcoins for the most part. So again, you got a lot of plays across the board. Litecoin, 600,000. You've got, for example, Dash as well. Dash has been pulling back quite nicely from its kind of rapid highs. It's still gained a lot over the last few days. But we also have some of our bigger plays. We've got things like Raven as well, right? Raven holding up relatively well. I guess most altcoins are not faring extremely well still. Along with that as well, basic attention tokens still setting significant higher lows. Ethereum, right? Ethereum, in this case, still setting a significant higher low. I don't like the range of the pullback here, but I will take a discount. And there's also, I don't know why, maybe I'm missing out chain links right there. Kyber Network, doing okay, still holding up the vast majority of its gains. Wish it could be back to this range. And then outside of that as well, Chainlink, going back in to the logarithmic ascending triangle. So it's going to be a matter of this breaks out here above this line again, or breaks back down, in the case of telling whether or not the momentum is going to be there. Okay, ScalpX index still showing Bitcoin's in a fearful territory, guys. And you guys know what we do, at least what I do. I like to buy into fear. And in this case, I'm not adding to any crypto positions, but I'm holding confidently through this period. And I do believe we're going to easily get back up to around 10,000 with all that's been going on in the macro picture. So I think we're going to see that sometime. As we step up towards the halving event, we get a little bit of a relief rally here going towards about 10K. And we'll see what happens in the market afterwards in the sense of the halving event, how long it really takes to really materialize the broader cycle. And I think we're doing it during a time period that's so perfect. As we talked about the other day, this is Bitcoin's time to shine. This is the time for Bitcoin to act as a hedging asset against inflation, against global fear. We have to see that develop over the next coming months, guys, plain and simple. Now, I want to go ahead and talk about the developing situation with COVID-19. Again, you guys know we're getting more testing out there, so the case numbers are ballooning. There's still some people out there that are not following quarantine protocols, and because of that, they're calling in sick. And I think it's around like 14 or 17% of all tests are returning positive. So we've got a pretty large case number in the United States. We actually have the largest out of any country. We surpassed China in the sense of total cases. And across the world, though, we can see that this is affecting a lot of other people, right? What's nice about the U.S. is we get a lot more personalized data and localized data throughout the different states and local counties and cities. But I want to go ahead, right? We understand that we're in the exponential growth curve here. If you take a look at the logarithmic chart, my apologies, we're holding a consistent growth trend in this case on a logarithmic basis. And this should be expected here. We're hitting the secondary S-curve. We had the one with China, and then after that, the global S-curve in this case. But I want to go ahead and talk about the economic ramifications. You see, if you were looking at the Dow Jones, the NASDAQ, and the S&P 500, you would have never guessed that the actual economy was doing poor, because right now, the real economy is doing poor. We just had the largest jobless claims ever recorded in history. Now, bear in mind, I understand that this is due to people being forced to quarantine, and in this case, tons of businesses that will probably come back online when the economy comes back up, and when we start to end the quarantine, we'll probably see this number drop a significant degree. But don't expect the 3,280,000 people who filed jobless claims in this case, right, that we're seeing here, compared to the peak back in 2008 of around 600,000 to 700,000. Don't bet that this is going to drop down to 1 million or lower. This is going to be a gradual process. And the reason I say that is because as much as the Federal Reserve, as well as the federal government, in the sense of fiscal stimulus outside of just monetary stimulus, though they are providing some relief to the economy with the new fiscal package that they put out of over $2 trillion, and the Fed injecting over $4 trillion to the banking sector, we are not going to see overnight businesses reopen. This is going to be a drawn-out process. This is going to take, at a minimum, multiple months to get down to a level below somewhere under 1 million, in this case, for jobless claims. I'd probably stand by that quite confidently, guys, because I can tell you all as a business owner, right, I'm not eager to open back my doors if I don't know that COVID is dealt with, until I know there's a vaccine, until I see the numbers significantly dropping. And we are going to be it's going to be a while before we get that, to put it simple, right? So this is the new norm for a little while. And I don't think markets get that, because markets are pumped up. They're happy to know there's $4 trillion in new liquidity in the banking system that can be fractional reserve. They love the idea that all these corporations that make up these indices, such as cruise lines and airlines that for years participated in massive stock buyback programs, are now going to get bailed out tooth and nail. And again, this will provide some short-term relief, no doubt. But I don't even think equities are saved here. I don't think that $2 trillion in fiscal stimulus and $4 trillion in monetary stimulus is going to be enough to keep this afloat for long. And we can see here that in the pre-market for the U.S., we're down about 3% across the board here, right? I pull up CNN Business because they usually have the futures that update a lot faster than investing.com. Sometimes they won't come on live for a while. You can see here, global markets not faring very well. Generally anywhere down from 2.5 to 5% across the board. And this is what's commonly referred to as a dead cat bounce in cryptocurrency markets and traditional markets. Sorry, I guess in the world of technical analysis, to be fair. Right? This has happened a lot. And the funny thing is people rush to the conclusion that just because we had 3 days of great price action, that a bear market is over. This is basically a sub-article that's been following off of what was reported from the Wall Street Journal, and they got so much crap for it that they had to remove the title. The shortest bear market in the Dow's history is over. Really, you want to call that a bear market is over after we just had the most stark sell-off in history in the sense of time period of sell-off, and we still have the virus that's caused all this lingering and growing in numbers, the highest initial jobless claims. Just wait until that unemployment number prints out and we go beyond levels that we haven't seen since the Great Depression. I don't know about that. I really don't know about the confidence, because quite frankly, the only reason the markets are rallying like this is because the Fed just took back its central bank balance sheet to where all the other global central banks are. And I can tell you guys, this is just the beginning of stimulus. The Fed and other central banks across the world are going to start printing money like crazy. If you think the Fed is the only one who's going to take this move, wait until the ECB, the Bank of England, the Bank of Japan, and the People's Bank of China start seeing what they're going to have to do in this case, right? And because if one company knocks down in this case, right? If one corporation in the United States starts going down, starts laying off people, right? This has a waning effect on the global economy. Don't think that the Bank of Japan is safe just because they have lower cases. If U.S. consumers aren't receiving as much income, they're going to start buying less cars. In that case, Nissan and Toyota start going down. And it's a whole macro perspective that you have to take and understand that the Fed has been responding so dramatically because this is all it can do. And this is all central banks can do instead of lowering interest rates. But most of them are already in zero or negative territory. All they can do is print now and buy up financial assets. The crazy thing is, this doesn't supplement real economic growth. It might provide some relief, but it doesn't get to the fixing the root cause of this recession, which is the growth of a global pandemic. It's the fallacy of thinking you can just toss money at something to fix the problem. And in the end, this could very well cause damage to the value of equities, because equities might show higher levels on paper. We might be seeing a good rally here of 20%. But you have to consider the base monetary supply is being devalued. So this 20% rally really isn't 20% if you keep it in mind. Adding $6 trillion to the monetary basis. Sure, it's probably an overall positive return after, a 35% pullback, right? So anyways, just wanted to emphasize that, guys. And again, not to get caught up in the headlines. Don't let a headline make you determine decisions, guys. We'll see how the market does over the next couple of days, because there's a few things I want to emphasize here before we dive into our review here for Incognito. And that's basically understanding just what's at risk here. Right? It is not just a closing of businesses across the board. It's not just a bunch of cash-tight companies such as restaurants and other small businesses that operate with a little less than a few $1,000s in each of their bank accounts. It's things like zombie companies who are only able to pay back the interest on the debt that they've taken out. Right? They're not even able to pay back the principal, the bulk amount of the debt that they owe. And we can see here, zombie companies massively underperforming against the S&P 500. But these companies have made up a larger and larger portion. They've grown larger and larger in the sense of their taking of the economy, their makeup of the economy. Nearly over 20% across the board here for most sectors. And now we have one of the biggest dominoes that could drag us into a much longer term recession, something that's played a large pinnacle in the growth of U.S. jobs and the growth of incomes across the board, and that is the energy sector. It's been a very lucrative blue-collar industry over the last few decades, but over the last 2 or 3 years, we've been in a pretty stark situation, right? I would say actually really over the last 5 years since we had the major sell-off from oil down from $100 a barrel down to $20-something dollars. And now we're back in that $20 territory. We had been holding around $60 or $80 a barrel, which allowed U.S. producers to continue producing at these prices. Same went for natural gas, around $3 to $4 per CFD on natural gas. And now we're back down to territory that a lot of people said was impossible, but we're here. Something we talked about for over 2 years on the channel. Since back in 2018, I drilled this point about how we were going to get down to these levels because the demand was not there. The economy was slowing. Production was ramping up too quick. OPEC and Russia and Saudi Arabia were not cutting. And now the U.S. is going to face the burden here. It's going to mean massive layoffs. Sure, it means cheap gas, right? I guess that's nice for the consumer, but it's going to mean massive layoffs in this case. And the key thing here to keep in mind is the vast majority of debt is in the energy sector. Take a look here at the cumulative bankruptcy debt here that's been piling up since 2015, going from 25 up to $207 billion. For one single industry, this is massive. The ramifications cannot be understated, guys. And here's the thing at the end of the day. Jay Powell still has the audacity to come out and say, we may be in a recession. Folks, it's not a question of whether or not we're in a recession. We're in a recession. 3 million Americans are not in work right now. They're barely curious as to whether or not, they're highly curious as to whether or not they're going to be able to be paying for their monthly rent, or their mortgage, or their insurance, or their daily essentials such as food and medical products. And they're curious whether or not they're going to be back to work in the next couple of weeks. Most likely, a lot of them won't be, even if they start to reopen things. And along with that as well, we have to ask the real question, right? We know that it's a recession. What Jay Powell and ourselves should be asking is whether or not this is going to be a Great Depression in the 21st century. I'm not trying to be melodramatic, guys. This is a serious question here. And quite frankly, I don't think this is just going to be a little V-shaped rebound. I can tell you if I thought that, I would be buying in right now. I have cash aside set for equities. I definitely want to make investments in equities. I want to start to diversify. I want to pick up after we've had a nice correction. But quite frankly, I'm not going to just buy after the first round of stimulus by the Fed because I understand how COVID-19 works. See, if over these next few days, the quarantine starts to reflect a drop in numbers, right? And we start to reopen things in the next coming weeks. I understand that COVID-19 is not a one-all thing. It's a cyclical process where we quarantine, the numbers go down, and then we reopen, and the cases go up again, right? This is going to be a seasonal cycle where we repeat the same process over and over again. This will not be the only quarantine. So A, we've got to get used to that, and B, we have to understand the economic ramifications. Imagine if you're a small business owner living in this environment of shutting on and off, on and off, on and off your business. It's not going to be optimal. People aren't just going to reopen en masse. Many are going to wait a year out until this is all sorted out, until there's a vaccine, until we start to get a slight bit of herd immunity across the board, until it becomes to a point where the overall cases are not that bad. That's the general gist of what's going to happen, guys. Plain and simple. That's at least what I can see here. But I'd like to know what you all think. Again, it's just my opinion at the end of the day, and I'd like to hear what you guys think down below in the comments. That all being said, though, let's go ahead and dive into our sponsored review for Incognito. Alrighty, everyone, so let's go ahead and spend some time to take a look at today's sponsor, and it is no other than Incognito. Now, for those of you out there who care about privacy as much as I do, you're definitely going to want to stay tuned and learn what the Incognito project is doing. To put it simple, Incognito has built both a combination of a hardware and software solution that has allowed users to preserve privacy on practically any cryptocurrency in existence. And this is an extraordinary feat that has been achieved by the team at Incognito, because for the last decade, the vast majority of cryptocurrency networks have lacked the decision making to actually integrate zero knowledge proofs or something like ring signatures, technologies that are used on a lot of privacy preserving protocols like Zcoin or Monero. And this has been a huge element of what many of us in the crypto space stand for. It's not only a security flaw for the average everyday user, but it's also a principled stance that we have yet to see a lot of public blockchains take. So we're going to be talking about how Incognito has been able to do this without an ICO, without VC funding, and actually from the ground ground up has built a technology that really brings people together in a decentralized way to preserve privacy. Okay, so right now it might be surprising to many of you. This is actually the Incognito website here. It's not over the top trying to sell you anything. It's just simply a very nice community-based forum-styled website. And again, this is going to be playing into the role here of what Incognito is really trying to do. It's trying to form a community here that cares about privacy and wants to preserve privacy in an era where there isn't much privacy when it comes to when we communicate with one another or when we send value across the world to one another. So it's very, very awesome here. I was talking to Andre, who's one of the heads of the company and working to build the community around Incognito. And he's done a phenomenal job here working with many others on the team to really just kind of promote this, again, as a device for the people and all of us in the community. So I want to go ahead here. Now, we have to first understand the issue here in order to understand Incognito and what they're trying to do. So when it comes to transactions on public blockchains, the terminology public blockchain should give you a lot of information as to what that means. It means that the information is public. Now, I might not know, for example, that a blockchain address is, for example, in this example, Alice, or that another address that's receiving the funds is Bob. But in many cases, there's a ton of companies now that can do meta-analysis, seeing as they have an immutable trail of where these transactions are going with the values that are being transferred. And because of this, we know that in many cases, we can identify Alice and identify Bob. And this is a big issue. This is not how digital cash should work. Digital cash should be that I give you a certain amount of value, right? And no one knows how much value that is or who you and I are. We just know that the transaction has been confirmed, right? That it is valid in this case. And this is what Incognito solves. It basically allows privacy preservation, which again, the vast majority of public blockchain networks do not support. They actually have a really good chart here that I loved that showcases, for example, XMR and Zcash in this case, as well as maybe a few others like Zcoin, really taking up a minute amount of value in the crypto space, really about 1% of the overall $200 billion market valuation. So it's very, very important that we build a solution that gets around having to require every single protocol to integrate it and simply work towards something that can bring privacy to every cryptocurrency. I really like this quote here they stated here with Incognito. It not only just kind of showcases their mindset of rationality in approaching this issue, but along with that, it shows you really answering what people really want is privacy on their existing currencies. They don't want to have to go out and buy another cryptocurrency. It's just too much complexity. And again, this is a very principled component if we're ever going to get crypto scaled out to the masses, plain and simple. So how does Incognito go about doing this? Well, it goes about doing it through two things. It's through the software side on the wallet, which we will take a look at throughout the video. And along with that as well, it's through the hardware device, which we'll also take a look at as well. I got one copy of it running right now. And we're going to talk about how these two play a role here. So I want to first talk off about the software side of things, and that is the wallet that they offer. Now, again, you can go to Incognito's website and you can download the wallet for iOS or Android. It's for free. It's a free application in this case for you to utilize. And the app allows you to do a lot of things. It allows you to, for example, process decentralized trades. You can also send and receive transactions privately. These are really the two main functions that the wallet allows you. But it's a really awesome wallet because I like any wallet, A, that allows you to trade, but also in this case allows you to have private trades. That's something that's completely unheard of outside of a few small exchanges like BISC and a few others that have been trying to pursue this, but really haven't been able to get much traction. In the case of Incognito, they've actually been able to process over 200,000 transactions since they launched back in November of 2019. In less than 5 months, they've been able to get over 200,000 transactions and over 5,000 users utilizing the wallet, which is really good user traction. There are not many crypto startups that can say that they've reached those kind of numbers. And along with that as well, in this case, it's nice because you have privacy preserved in every element in this case. It's not just for sending and receiving, it is for trading as well. So I just want to emphasize that. And the user experience, I mean, you can see here on the picture, it's very clean. We'll dive through the wallet in just a moment, but again, I want to provide a brief overview here, and then we'll dive a little bit deeper into both the software side and the hardware. So the other way that they play a role here in this case, right, the software, the app in this case that you use on your phone is the interface in this case, where you can really benefit from a lot of these features such as private transactions and sending and receiving transactions privately. Now bear in mind, there is fees attached to that, and that leads us into our second component here. who's actually preserving the privacy in this case? Well, it's actually the nodes on the network in this case who are basically relaying or processing these transactions in a private nature. And that is where the node comes in. So this right here is an actual design of the Incognito node. I've got one of them here, and I'll actually pull it up on the screen. I've got it running currently at the moment. And the Incognito node is extremely sleek. It gives people a way not only to contribute in this case to preserving privacy for every user who's doing trades or sending receiving transactions on Incognito's network, but along with that as well, it gives them a way to earn. I'd seen a lot of projects in the crypto space that try to do some form of kind of democratized hardware for the crypto space, many of them focused in mining. And the issue with most of them in that case is that they're too power consuming and they really don't provide a good way to earn in the long term. What's nice about Incognito as a device, and specifically this node that they've built, is that it's a staking based model in this case. In this case, you're able to relay and process useful transactions for people in a privacy preserving way, and you're able to earn cryptocurrency as time progresses. So it's a really interesting concept here, and it's again something for those out there, I would say at the end of the day, who really care about contributing to the vision of privacy, or those who may be interested in this case of earning some residual income over time. Now, long story short, again, the product and the software work really well, but I want to go ahead and actually do a little bit of a demo diving through the app, in this case doing a test private transaction, in this case in the sense of doing an actual private trade, and then we'll actually go through and just again learn a little bit more about the wallet as well as the node. So let's go ahead and jump into diving into the actual mobile app. Alrighty everyone, so let's go ahead and dive into the actual Incognito wallet that's available for free on iOS and Android. Now I've got it up here on my phone, and to make it clear, there's two things that I look for when I'm reviewing any kind of wallet. I tend to look for a clean user experience and a good range of functionality, and luckily Incognito checks off both of these boxes. As you can see right off the bat, the user experience is clean and they keep things minimalistic. The navigation is very simple, and I think that's very important for a crypto wallet. So for example, you have here on the home page all of your functionality that you care about, from private send and receive transactions to doing private trades on their decentralized exchange. Again, speaking to the second element here, the range of functionality. But we not only have the home tab here, we've got our nodes tab, which we'll look at in just a moment to actually manage our physical nodes if we have one from the wallet, and along with that as well, our wallet in this case, where we can actually track our current holdings in this case, and as well as that, a community tab where you can engage with people if you want to get a little more engaged in the overall Incognito ecosystem. Now, we've taken a look here at the wallet and the home page, and we will go back to the actual home page in a moment. But for those who are interested in running their own nodes in this case, this is the actual window that you'll want to take a look at to see if your nodes are operating. Now, mine kind of goes in and out due to the fact that my connection is not very good, and that's actually a fault of my own. I don't have the Incognito node very close to the router. But you can see here right now that I've actually been able to earn, just over the last couple of days, a decent amount of PRV, the base currency of the Incognito network, for simply being able to help relay and process these transactions. I've been able to play a role by just simply running it and preserving privacy for all these individuals who are trying to do trades and transactions to truly make these crypto transactions or activities like digital cash. So it's really, really cool. And again, I would really emphasize this, and I think Andre and many people from the team would emphasize this too. You know, at the end of the day, guys, when it comes to running an actual node in this case, there definitely can be monetary benefit in this case. You're getting a reward in this case for being able to shield these transactions. But along with that as well, I'd really say at the end of the day, this is a thing of whether or not you really care about helping to preserve privacy, right? If you buy an Incognito node in this case and support the network, in that case, it's got to be about the message in this case and the value of preserving privacy, not only for yourself, but other people. And the cool thing is the more nodes that they get on the Incognito network, the more privacy preserving it becomes. So again, you guys can play a role in it. This is my node that I've been running. It's really awesome to see that it's been able to earn some income as well just over the last few days. And it's constantly running in the background. I don't have to do much maintenance. I just simply plug it into the wall and it's there and done. Now, let's go ahead and actually dive into some of the features here on the wallet, right? So we first off have very basic send and receive transactions, right? This is very familiar to many people. Now, the first thing to note is that you have in-network and out-network transactions, right? So in this case, if I want to send a certain amount of private Bitcoin in this case, and you're going to see P's in front of all these currencies, and I'll explain that. If you see, for example, if I were to have one PBTC, basically in this case, what I'm doing is I'm taking a Bitcoin that I have in the Incognito network and actually transacting it back into the core Bitcoin network. So in this case, we can do out-of-network transactions and in-network transactions. So if we're sending to another Incognito user, we can just send them PBTC in this case, right? So again, very interesting stuff, and the same goes here for the receiving side. But here's where the cool functionality comes in. I love an exchange or decentralized exchange being built in to the underlying wallet. And we have that here on the Incognito wallet. So we can go here and we can swap one currency for another. You can see here that we could exchange, in this case, 1 Bitcoin in this case for a certain amount of PTUSD. But I want to go ahead and actually take Tether in this case and transact it for some PRV in this case. So we can see here that I've got a current balance of a little under 5 Tether. I've already actually bought in some PRV as well. But I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to make a trade here for, let's say, $2.50. So basically, $2.50 will buy me right now at the current market rate 6 PRV coins. And through this, we can see the actual pool size of how much capital is there. So as more capital builds up, you'll get better discovery in the sense of price, and you'll get better rates. But we can see in this case, we have an exchange rate of 1 PUSDT for 2.4339 PRV. So we just simply click trade. We can see a confirmation on the trade here. And click confirm. And it's going to take a second to process this, guys. Again, it's not going to be as speedy as other transactions on exchanges. And the reason for that is that we're doing it through a decentralized exchange and we're making it private as well. So there's a bit of a cost there in the sense of the time. But so far, all the trades that I've actually processed on the app have run through smoothly. And I think that's really cool here to just see that it's actually worked as well as it has. Now, one thing you'll have to do before you can actually trade your funds in this case is you deposit money into the Incognito wallet. Is there's a deposit in the top left, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Once you've transferred funds over to your Incognito wallet, you also do an additional deposit into the exchange, in this case, the pool. So we're going to go ahead here, just give it another second here, and the transaction should be processed quite soon. But again, the crazy thing about this, guys, if you really think about it, all those hardware nodes are playing a role. And now we just were able to make a private, decentralized trade. No centralized exchange counterparts, no need for a third party in this case. We were able to do it over a distributed and decentralized network that's privacy preserving. How cool is that? I mean, this is big stuff, guys. Now, again, this doesn't have, I think, the kind of like mainstream liquidity that it'll need and stuff to bring in large volume in this case. We're going to need to see that over time. This is an early project. Incognito launching back in November 2019 isn't going to be the premier platform for everyone just yet. But the functionality's there. The privacy preservation's there. And I think that's very fascinating. Now, again, you have to deposit from one of your accounts. In this case, I don't have any extra in my account because I already deposited it in to the actual balance here. So in this case, we've got it here on our actual wallet, in this case, inside the PDEX, in this case, where we can make trades. So these are the really core functions here. There's a few other things as well. You can, for example, there's a quick button to buy PRV if you want to stake it, in this case, on the node. And you also have, in this case, P-apps. This is something that they could really build out in the future, similar to what we've seen in the Ethereum, EOS, and Tron ecosystem. You have the concept of dApps. I'm personally not crazy about decentralized applications, unless they're really tied to finance in this case, or DeFi. But I will say that I think there's going to be a lot of interesting applications from the DeFi ecosystem that could be integrated into the Incognito wallet that are privacy preserving. So I'm very excited to see that as well. Now, taking a step back here, right, and talking a little bit more about the underlying fundamentals of the hardware in this case, guys. Again, the ability here is for you to be able to earn and stake, in this case, PRV, the base currency, right? So there's a way that you can earn in the long term. And I've got my node running. I'll play some footage here on the screen so you guys can see it real time plugged into the wall. And it's been running great. The only issue on my end is, again, the internet connection in this case that I've had. I've just been distant away from the router, but most of the time it's up and running, and that's how I've been able to earn PRV and actually process transactions. It's very quick. It's very simple. Unlike mining, which can be very complex when you're dealing with expensive computer hardware and having to do a lot of the software setup on your own, the Incognito wallet really just requires that you download the Incognito wallet and have the hardware and plug it into the wall. That's it. It takes a little bit of electricity costs to run it, just like any other hardware device, and you're good to go. So there's not much to really say about the hardware device outside of the fact that it's extremely simple. The software, I think, is really what comes in here. Now, I want to make it clear, you can actually utilize all of this technology in the wallet just simply having the wallet, right? So you don't need to go out and spend the money to buy the node in that case, right? I want to make that very clear. But if you guys want to contribute to the network and possibly earn in the process, that's when you can get the Incognito node. And again, the more nodes we get, the more private the network becomes. So in summary, right, we've taken a good look through the wallet here. We've gotten a good feel for what Incognito is trying to do and what it's actually been able to achieve in just a short period of time. And I have to say, it's amazing to see the progress that's been built up. This is something that I believe is just going to continue to snowball here. And I got to say, I'm giving my hats off to the team here in this case for what they've been able to achieve. So if you guys want to get more engaged in the Incognito ecosystem, again, check out their website at incognito.org, where you can get engaged with the community. You can chat with many of the team members, including people who are just as big of privacy advocates as you. And you guys can build friends, build new members in this case, and build an ecosystem around this concept. So that being said, everyone, that's going to be it for our review today. Definitely check out incognito.org down below in the description for more information. That all being said, though, guys, I'll see you all in the next video. Stay tuned.